Welcome to the deep dive. You're here because, well, you want to get right to the heart of things. Understand a subject deeply, but without getting totally bogged down in information. And that's what we try to do here.
Exactly. Think of it like this. We do the groundwork, wading through all the material, and then we bring you what we think are the really key insights, the important stuff.
And today, you've given us a really fascinating set of materials to work with. The year 1970 and the life and art of Bob Camblin. We've
Okay.
got exhibition announcements, a Houston Chronicle review, which gives a critical perspective, and a collection of Camblin's own notes and thoughts.
Yeah, it's quite a mix, isn't it? It gives us different angles. You see the sort of factual side that shows where he was exhibiting, but also hopefully a feel for his artistic thinking and how he was, reacting to the world then.
So our mission for this deep dive really is to unpack Camlin's 1970, what was going on. We want to look at his exhibitions that move into theater design, and crucially, how the pretty intense social and political climate might have played into his work and his thinking.
And like you said, the sources give us plenty to go on. The announcements are the basic facts. The review gives us one interpretation of a key show, and then Camblin's own words. Well, that adds that invaluable personal layer, doesn't it?
Okay, let's dive right in then. One of the first things that just jumps out is how busy he was with exhibitions in 1970. 8 shows in one year.
Yeah.
What does that usually signal for an artist?
Well, it's a lot. That kind of activity, you might think, suggests someone who's really building momentum, maybe gaining recognition or perhaps actively pushing to get his work out there, seen by different crowds, especially in a time of, well, significant cultural shifts.
And the venues are really varied too. He's in Drawing USA, which traveled from St. Paul to Austin. And interestingly, the notes say he helped with set design for a production linked to that show in Austin.
Right, with Neil Havens directing.
Then back in Houston, you have the Boxscape show at David Gallery, which is the one that got that specific review we have.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. There's a group show opening in Dallas at Cranfield Gallery, mentioned in the Fort Worth paper. He's in Drawings in America, and another one, Drawings from 9 States, both at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston.
And that tattoo show, also at David Gallery.
Yeah, that one sounds intriguing, doesn't it? Collaborating with Earl Saley and Diane, the gallery owner, and Staley was apparently filming it. It gives you a sense of, well, maybe a more experimental side to the Houston scene then.
Definitely. Plus another St. Paul show and the Highway show at Rice University. It's this mix of local spots, university connections, regional, even national exposure, quite a range.
It really is. Showing at the MFA Houston alongside something like the tattoo show, it suggests he wasn't confining himself to just one type of venue or art world, maybe an openness to different ways of making and showing art.
And speaking of different dimensions, there's the theater work. He designed the set for the Rice Players production of The Devils early in the year, again with Neil Havens.
And we know he was on the fine arts faculty at Rice then.
Yeah.
He had the background, right? BFA, MFA from Kansas City Art Institute of Fulbright in Rome.
Right, and previous teaching gigs. So you wonder how that visual arts training, that specific expertise, might have influenced his approach to designing for the stage.
That's a great question. Did the themes in his drawings or paintings somehow connect with the world he built for the Devils? It suggests a broader creative impulse, not just limited to paper or canvas.
Now let's zoom out a bit to the bigger picture. 1970, it was a really turbulent time in the U.S., as the sources remind us. There was that protest at Rice over Abby Hoffman.
Right, the sources mention that division between outside agitators and the Rice students resisting it, and the fire in the dean's office.
And then Nixon escalating the war in Cambodia, Kent State. I mean, it was a period of intense division and anxiety. How do you think that backdrop might have filtered into an artist's work or mindset, like Camblin's?
It's hard to imagine it wouldn't have, right?
Right.
That level of national tension, the anti-war protests, the civil rights struggles, it permeated everything. The specific incident at Rice, that clash, kind of mirrors the larger societal conflicts.
And it seems Camblin wasn't just passively observing. The notes say he found the conservative vibe at Rice worrisome and actually pushed his students to think critically about civil liberties.
Yeah, that suggests someone who felt artists and educators had a role to play, you know. Not just saying in the studio, but engaging with the big questions of the day, encouraging critical thought, using his platform.
It also mentions Joe Tate joining the Rice Art Department around then, replacing Earl Staley. And crucially, Tate apparently lined up politically and artistically with Camblin and Staley.
That's interesting. Having that kind of shared outlook within a department, well, it can create a certain energy, can it? Maybe a supportive environment for a particular kind of art or critique. It could foster a specific kind of dialogue or even collaboration.
Okay, let's focus back in on that Boxscapes exhibition at David Gallery. The Chronicle review really gives us something to dig into. Camblin's own description is pretty wild. A surrealistic marriage of catcher heads, rubber gloves, and mountain ranges entwined in miles of visceral tubing youthful recollections.
It's quite a mouthful and really evocative. The reviewer definitely picks up on that youthful recollections idea, comparing the works to little walk-up drive-ins showing selected short subjects from Camblin's youth.
But then they add a caveat, don't they? Suggesting that maybe these personal visions don't quite connect emotionally for the viewer. They call them arresting, but also filled with uneasy visions of things scary.
Exactly. That potential gap between the artist's personal meaning and the viewer's experience is fascinating. It implies the work wasn't necessarily aiming for easy comfort or universal relatability.
They mention sparrow ancestor masks specifically and sort of joke that someone else might just see catfish heads.
Which really highlights how personal and maybe even coded the imagery was, right? It suggests he's exploring a private landscape, maybe tapping into something subconscious that doesn't offer simple interpretations. Those uneasy visions hint at something maybe darker or more complex about memory itself.
And then there was that one construction, time machine. The review calls it a key to the show. Apparently it contained Camblin memorabilia, acting as symbols.
Like he was offering a way in, acknowledging the potential difficulty of the other pieces perhaps. It's like, okay, these boxes might be a bit strange, but here are some clues, some artifacts to help you navigate this world. It's an interesting strategy.
The review also touches on technique, mentioning he was tired of muted color, worked in a clean detail, and it talks about the box format, suggesting Siberian perspective studies, and also evoking faded early Renaissance frescoes. What do those comparisons suggest to you?
Well, the Siberian perspective reference. That's quite specific. It might point to a non-traditional way of handling space within the box, maybe a kind of forced or unusual depth. And the faded frescoes idea. They could suggest texture, a sense of age, maybe even decay, which contrasts sharply with that clean detail he was apparently moving away from. It adds layers of historical echo, perhaps.
So, the overall feeling from the review is the sense of an adventure of remembering, but one that's maybe quite internal, personal, and not always sunny. Caricature and scary visions. It definitely sounds like a show designed to provoke, not just please.
Absolutely. It paints a picture of an artist unafraid to explore difficult internal terrains and maybe challenge the viewer a bit, asking them to engage with memories that aren't necessarily idealized.
Now, thinking about all this, let's bring in some of Camblin's own words from that Quotes and Other Mysteries document. There's a line, "Fortunately, some things remain forever," or another 10 years, perhaps. That feels like it fits right in with the themes of memory and Boxscapes, doesn't it?
It really does. That slight melancholy, the uncertainty about time and memory, it resonates. And the line that follows, as they approach the memory of songs and music stopped, captures that fading quality, that sense of things slipping away. It feels very connected to trying to capture something fleeting in art.
And his statement about art's purpose. Art is not just images. Art for art's sake has become art for life's sake, or art for my sake, or art for survival's sake. That feels very 1970, questioning the old rules.
Definitely. That idea that art needs to do something more, that it's tied to living, to surviving even, it really speaks to a time when artists were rethinking their role. It makes art sound essential, personal, maybe even urgent for him.
I also like this quote, "I will stick with common sense and try for the perfectly average view of the universe. I think that will let me enjoy miracles on both sides of science and magic." There's a kind of grounded curiosity there.
Yeah. It's a lovely thought, isn't it? Rejecting rigid categories, wanting to embrace both the logical and the magical or intuitive. You can see how that mindset might lead to the kind of surprising combinations found in his art.
And then there are fragments like, "In the balance, patience, and yet. Freedom again, and yet in silence." It feels like he's thinking about navigating tensions, finding some kind of equilibrium.
The constant push and pull, patience versus freedom, silence versus, well, whatever comes next. In a year like 1970, with so much external turmoil, that search for inner balance might have been incredibly important, both personally and artistically.
There's another quote. "Drawing on a frosted window, the waterfinger eyes in a balloon face allow a hazy look out into space, then it fogs over and another pattern takes its place." That visual feels so connected to memory, perception, how things shift and change.
It's a beautiful metaphor, isn't it? Capturing that temporary shifting nature of how we see things, how memories appear and fade. It echoes what the reviewer saw in Boxscapes, those fleeting, maybe hazy glimpses. It suggests an artist very aware of the instability of perception.
And even though some quotes are dated a bit earlier, like from 68 in the Ecology of Art section, the ideas seem relevant. Talking about the artist as a free agent, trying to navigate a world that feels maybe off balance, that sense of striving for authenticity in a changing art world.
Absolutely. Those concerns about the role of the artist, dealing with consumerism in art, the shift away from purely formal concerns towards concept, these were very much live issues around 1970. His writings show him actively grappling with what it meant to be an artist then.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, 1970 for Bob Camblin looks like, well, an incredibly productive and layered year. A huge amount of exhibition activity in all sorts of places, that engagement with theater, and this clear undercurrent of awareness about the social and political chaos.
Yeah, you really see him operating on multiple fronts, deeply involved locally in Houston, but also reaching out regionally and nationally. He's collaborating, but also doing this very intense personal work like Boxscapes. And all the while, his own writings show this thoughtful, questioning mind trying to make sense of it all.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How an individual artist's path, their internal thoughts and memories, connects with these huge historical forces and cultural shifts happening around them. What can looking closely at someone like Camblin in 1970 tell us about that specific era?
And maybe turn that lens on ourselves, too. What are the seemingly small things in our own lives? You know, a recurring image, a reaction to the news, a half-forgotten memory. What might those tell us about the bigger picture, the currents shaping our own time? It prompts you to look beyond the headlines, perhaps.
That's a great place to leave it. A lot to mull over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.